Today, we're going to jump into a wild legal drama. It all started in this, seemingly quiet homeowners association out in Arizona, but what unfolded? Wow. It actually ended up revealing a really fundamental rule about how our laws work, period. We're talking a messy election, a serious power play, and a legal fight that all came down to one single powerful idea. So let's just get right to it. Here's the question that kicked this whole thing off. Imagine this. Your neighborhood just elects a whole new board, but the president who basically lost immediately turns around and tries to kick them out. Is that even allowed? Can he do that? Well, that's exactly what went down in the Carter Ranch community. And the answer? Well, it's way more interesting than you think. All right, so to really get how this all ended up in a courtroom, we've got to rewind a bit. We have to look at the election that lit the fuse. And believe me, this was not your average boring annual meeting. This thing was a total pressure cooker of accusations and neighborhood drama. So here's how it all went south. First, they try to have an election in February, and it's a total fail. Not enough people even bothered to vote. So leading up to the second try, things get ugly. Allegations start flying around. People are saying some candidates are going door to door, spreading what they called false information and even ballot harvesting. By the time they finally have the meeting on March 20th, the community manager literally described it as unruly and stressful. I mean, the stage was absolutely set for some fireworks. Now check this out. Look at who actually won. The top three vote-getters, Roxanne Gould and the two Brownells, were the exact same people accused of all that shady business. And guess who came in fourth? The sitting president, Lance Van Horne. So yeah, he managed to hang on to a seat, but he was basically defeated by the very people he thought had cheated to win. So what do? The people you're accusing of cheating just beat you in an election. Well, if you're Lance Van Horne, you don't just, accept the results. No. You use the power you still have as president to try and flip the whole table over. And here it is, the big move. Van Horne, all by himself, calls a special meeting, and the only thing on the agenda, recalling the top three winners. His reason? He claimed the election was compromised by their behavior. This wasn't just a complaint, it was a direct attack on the results that had just been finalized. And would you look at how close this recall vote was? I mean, these numbers are just razor thin. Roxanne Gould, she squeaks by, surviving the recall by just 2 votes. But Steve and Trish Brownell, not so lucky. They both get recalled, and again, by a tiny margin of only 2 votes. So, boom, just 1 month after they were elected, they were out. And this is where the story pivots. It stops being just a neighborhood squabble and turns into a fascinating legal puzzle. A homeowner, Thomas Van Dan Elzen, decides to get involved and files a formal petition. He basically argues that the whole recall meeting was illegal from the very beginning, not because of the vote, but because of how the meeting was called in the first place. This is what sets up a classic showdown between 2 different state laws. Okay, this is the whole case right here. The HOA and its president, they point to a general law about meetings, and it says the president can call a special meeting. Pretty straightforward, right? So they argued, hey, this gives our guy all the authority he needs. But the homeowner pointed to a different law, a very specific one that is literally titled Removal of Board Member. And that law says that to start a recall, you need a petition signed by the actual members. The president isn't even part of that process. So you see the conflict? Which law do you follow? The general one for any old meeting or the specific one just for recalls? And this quote right here from a totally separate case is a massive hint. See, the courts have run into this problem before, plenty of times, and they've already come up with a rule for it. When a general law and a special law are fighting, the special one wins. It's the tiebreaker. So how does the judge figure this out? Well, he doesn't have to invent something new. The winner here is decided by applying a simple but really powerful legal idea that's designed to make sure the rules are followed fairly. And here it is. This is the big takeaway from this whole story, the specific over general rule. It's a cornerstone of how laws are understood. Think about it like this. A sign that says no vehicles in the park, that's a general rule. But if right next to it there's a sign that says ambulances may enter, that's a specific rule. If an ambulance has an emergency, which sign do you follow? The specific one, obviously. It creates a necessary exception to the general rule. That is the exact logic the judge used here. He said, look, removing an elected official from their post is such a big deal, such a specific action,
You can't just use the general rule for calling any old meeting. You have to follow the specific, detailed procedure that was written for that exact purpose. And that procedure required a petition from the members. The president just didn't have the power to do it on his own.
And here are the real-world consequences of that ruling. This wasn't just some symbolic victory. No, the judge's order completely reversed the entire recall. The homeowner's petition, granted. The Brownells, they were ordered to be put right back on the board. And to top it all off, the HOA had to pay the homeowner back his $500 filing fee. So why are we digging into this little HOA dispute from Arizona? Because the principle at the heart of it is huge. This isn't just about Carter Ranch. It's a lesson in how rules and power are supposed to work in pretty much any group or community. So let's just quickly boil this down. First, procedures are everything, especially for huge decisions like kicking someone out of office. You gotta follow the rules to the letter. Second, this case proves you can't just use a vague, general rule to get around a more specific one you don't like. This specific over general idea is what helps prevent people in power from just finding loopholes to do whatever they want. It's a check on power that applies everywhere, from your condo board all the way up to the government. And that kind of leaves us with one final question for you. Whether you live in an HOA, you're on a committee at work, or you're just part of any group with a rulebook, this story is a good reminder to look a little closer. Do you actually know these specific rules for the most important stuff that happens in your community? Because as the folks in Carter Ranch found out, knowing the difference between a general rule and a specific one, well, that can change everything.